Okay, let's get rolling. Senate Bill 48. Come on down. We are here and honored to have the former chairman of the committee. Yay, Casemeyer. Yeah, always good to see you. Depends what you say today.
And a lot of great memories, doing a great job. It's touching to hear about the food situation, but I hope the state can respond. We're here today to present Senate Bill 48, in which we want to thank you for sponsoring. And my name is Ed Casemeyer. I'm chair of the IAC, and with me is our executive director, Alex Donahue. And on my left is our Director of Funding Operations, Arabia Davis, who we're pleased to have. Before Alex begins, I just wanted to say a couple things. We made a presentation to House Appropriations last week, and the Senator King and her subcommittee was there, so it'll be repetitious to them. But I just wanted to let you know that our most significant problem is just the fact that schools are costing so much to build today. And in the last 20 plus years, school costs have escalated almost as 3 times as the rate of inflation typically, 120% to like 78% in the actual measurement of inflation in the state. This is causing an incredible problem for counties, particularly smaller counties who are having a hard time making the match. And Alex and his team have done a great job trying to help each of them with their unique problems to make sure they can construct their portfolio. The bill today, I'll just give a statement or two, a second sentence or two. It's about making the IAC a little bit more efficient in their use of funds for state dollars, as Alex will present. And secondly, it brings up to date some language that really wasn't compatible with laws that have been passed previously. So it'll match up with that better after you listen to what Alex has to say. So with that, Alex will make his comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I really appreciate this opportunity to present the IAC's departmental bill, and also thankful for your sponsorship of the bill. I'd like to first provide some context for it. For 5 decades, the IAC was first and foremost a grant management agency responsible for allocating and awarding the state's school construction funding to school districts' projects. In 2018, the General Assembly passed the 21st Century School Facilities Act, which expanded the IAC's roles to include regular assessment of the condition of each public school facility in Maryland, as well as expanded technical assistance to support school districts around all aspects of facilities portfolio management. The IAC has risen to meet the new requirements and obtained a hugely improved understanding of the needs, challenges, and opportunities facing the state when it comes to ensuring that every public school student in Maryland has a safe, healthy, and educationally sufficient school in which to learn. Just 2 weeks ago, as Chair Casemeyer mentioned, the IAC presented to the Appropriations Committee, who are joined by members of this committee, and I shared an update on the school facilities conditions and needs across the state, as well as about the increasing cost of facilities improvements and school construction. And the data show that the cost has gone up so significantly that it has really reduced the purchasing power of school districts and the state's capital budgets. Maryland faces an uphill battle in the coming years in its quest to ensure educational sufficiency for every public school student in the state. But some of the provisions in law currently have been in place since well before the General Assembly directed that the IAC modernize to meet the challenges that are facing our schools. So to help the IAC carry out its expanded mission, the Commission submits today and requests your support for the adjustments included in this bill. The purpose of these adjustments is to better equip the IAC and 2 partner agencies, State Department of Education and Department of General Services, to carry out our respective responsibilities around school districts' projects. The bill does this by streamlining, updating, and clarifying statutory language regarding 8 key topics, some of which are carried out by the IAC, some by MSDE, and some by DGS. Because of the interconnected responsibilities of the 3 agencies, we have worked together to bring about the related changes for all 3 agencies as a one unified bill. The changes proposed here include a number of technical changes to agency operating requirements, addressing issues that pose significant problems for one or more of the 3 agencies, corrects items that no longer work well due to changed circumstances or other changes implemented in law in the past few years, or, as Chair Casemeyer mentioned, that will increase the effectiveness of the 3 agencies by making our operations more efficient and serve school districts better. The Commission is very sensitive to the fiscal challenges facing our state. And while these changes will improve efficiency, they are less about saving money in operations and more about helping us do more for school districts with what we are receiving in appropriations. The IAC is already operating on an extremely thin 1% overhead rate compared with the capital budget that we manage. That's far lower than the 5 to 12% overhead rate more typical of public and philanthropic grant management organizations. The proposed adjustments in this bill are about being able to obtain more results against the growing demands with static resources and streamlining our coordination between the 3 agencies. And I think these changes will further give the state a better chance at not losing the battle against the increasing costs of maintaining schools that are the anchors of our communities. And so now, Mr. Chair, I will pause to ask whether you'd like me to detail any of the components or stand for questions.
I don't need you to do that. I don't know if anybody else wants it right now, but Senator McCray?
I got a question.
Okay. Not to that, though. We can review them later. That's fine. Although I do have, well, let Senator McCray ask his question first.
You want me to go?
Yeah, please.
Before I ask my question, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to make a very quick comment. Mr. Director, I just remember years ago, I had so many challenges with the IEC, and I can remember reaching out to Chairman Casemeyer, Linda Eberhard, anybody that would listen from that standpoint. And I just remember a couple years ago, my chair came in with a bill, and I have reservations, but I just want to say thank you for what you're doing, because the communication is at a greater extent at this moment, like just the due diligence and what's going on. And I just want to say that because, like I said, I know the apprehension, but you've done everything you said you're going to do. To my question, there are a couple organizations with, look like some technical amendments that's in there. If you want to comment on them, that would be helpful.
So we haven't actually seen requested amendments aside from MSDE's, which is a technical amendment to expand the definition to what it was originally intended to be in the discussions, and that did not make it into the drafting, which is specifically around the project review responsibilities for the state superintendent to have to look at both the items that affect the grounds and sites of schools and not just the buildings themselves. And that's important because of the play spaces, playgrounds that support the school programming, as well as community activities, and Americans with Disability Act access questions around the portions of the site that lead to the building. Those are things that MSDE and the state superintendent feel are very important to review in projects and should be included, but were inadvertently left out when the wording was left as building, and it was agreed upon between the agencies that we didn't want it to be interpreted as building only and not the entire facility, which it really truly should be.
Just some of the LEAs feel as though it's a substantial amount of increased responsibility.
Thank you for bringing that up, Senator. The reporting around the statewide facility assessment is actually already in progress now. The school districts are sharing with the IAC the information that's listed in that section. It is something that the IAC incorporates into the statewide facilities assessment, and it actually provides the school districts with an opportunity to have a little bit more hand and a little bit more direct say in what the reporting includes, so that it covers the areas that they are most concerned about in their facilities. I think it actually fosters more direct involvement by the school districts in that reporting than it would be if you know, the IAC simply did it with staff or a contractor.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we were in the hearing the other day, one of the things that struck me the most is when we were talking about how long a building should be expected to last, and I think 60 years was, is there any way to build them to last longer? I mean, look at other countries that have buildings that are hundreds of years old. Just seems like we should be able to do that.
Thank you, Senator. That's a great question. The answer, the very simple answer is yes. Buildings can be designed and built to last longer than 60 years. The challenge comes in the fact that educational programs really do change and have changed so much across the decades that even though the building itself is still quite serviceable at 60 years or even after, oftentimes the layout and the equipment and some of the attributes are not. And so a building may have bones that can last longer and can be renovated, but will still need a renovation and a reconfiguration in order to properly serve the modern educational services that need to be delivered as community needs change. So it's not so much that the materials can't last. Of course, you know, certain building systems, you know, only have a lifespan of 20, 30 years and will be replaced 2 or 3 times over the lifespan. But the building itself, yeah, we have many over 60 years old now. But as a rule of thumb, it works for planning purposes. I think the big question is, can we get the lifespans we need at a lower cost? And what can we support school districts in doing in terms of innovations to get there? And there are districts that are working hard on that now. Mm-hmm.
So some of these questions, I think particularly the first one that Senator McCray asked, fall into the question of what are all the things that need to be evaluated? And presumably, the reason to evaluate this on some degree, right, is when things need to be replaced, right? That's a fundamental issue, right? And so the question I have, and I have been dealing with a little bit in Howard County and struggling with, is are those decisions strictly about the building? Now you're talking about the grounds, the physical nature of it, or are there other issues that deal with programmatic things primarily related to the student body population, number of farm kids, those kind of things? I don't expect that that would necessarily be something that you would add in, but maybe it would be. But ultimately, I think those issues are ones that also should be driving the replacement and the renovations, those programmatic things and the nature of the student body. I'll just let you address that and see what I hear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely. The IAC statewide assessment does look at both condition and educational sufficiency for each facility. To date, the law has said that the IAC may not use the data from the statewide assessment directly in making program grant awards until fiscal 2028. But we are prepared to do that, and as soon as the work group on the educational funding and assessment of facilities takes place, which is, I believe, now going to be scheduled for this coming summer, we'll be able to have a weighting between the condition issues and the educational sufficiency issues and be able to weight them so that they can be combined and used to help direct funding to the highest needs. Absolutely, that part, that is included and ready to go.
Student population, the basics of the students in every one of those schools, that impacts programmatic. And 28. Prior to that, the school systems can do that themselves.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Are you guys finished with your presentation? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you. Yeah, Mary Pat? And, oh, there she is. And we have somebody online too, right? Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Mary Pat Fannin. I'm the Executive Director of the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland, or PASAM. I'm here to provide support for the IAC's bill, but we do have some requested amendments. Thank you, Senator McRae, for bringing those up in the previous discussion. I also want to let you know that Ms. Warner is signed up, and she is one of our longest, most experienced facility directors, and so if there are questions that I can't answer, things that need to be clarified, she's there to help me out. So we really appreciate the bill and a lot of the cleanup. Those of you who were ever part of the Begathon know that this process gets better and more human than it used to be. But we do have some issues that we'd like to have some clarity on, and we did have a pretty pretty good conversation with Mr. Donahue last week about these, and so we will make sure that he's got a copy of all of our specific questions and recommended language. Our testimony goes through these in detail. Excuse me, MABE's concerns also will are the same as ours. But I do want to just bring one issue to the forefront right now, and that's about timing. So the elimination of the 75% approval by December 31st could be problematic. This is a timing that has been meaningful for LEAs and counties in their budget planning, and removing the timing without knowing what you are in the queue for, what your priorities are, and waiting until March 1st is way too late in the budget process for boards of eds and counties. So from my discussions with Alex, it sounds like they have something else in mind that would help create some predictability, but that is not in the legislation, and it makes us really uncomfortable to not know anything until March. So we really would like to have some clarity, some clarifying language for that piece. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Ms. Warner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Senate Bill 48. So as Mary Pat said, there are some items within this bill, and as Alex said prior, that do help to clarify and streamline some of the processes, which we are thankful for as LEAs. But there is some concerning language, and just two things that I think are worth highlighting. One is the 75% recommendations. That really is sort of our initial litmus test on what the state is, specifically the IAC, what they believe are eligible projects that we will get funding for. And we essentially start our CIP process in August with our county government partners. But the December timeframe for the 75% recommendations, even though they are several months after we have started our CIP process, it does give us a really good idea of if a project is going to have a good chance of getting funded, if it has some issues that we then have time to get worked out, or if it certainly does not have any chance of getting funded. So then we can go back to our county governments with a contingency plan. So pushing that process out until March is really detrimental to our CIP planning process. So I would really like to emphasize that we take a look at that. I did want to speak just very quickly to the statewide facility assessment data reporting. The way that the language is noted in the bill right now, it does appear to shift the burden very much onto the LEAs. And right now, the state does assessments of a quarter of our facilities at a time. It appears to require us to provide all of that data in 1 year. So this is quite burdensome. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you so much. Questions for either of these witnesses? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
That will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 48. And now we begin, not the Truman Show, we bring the McCrae Show. Yeah. Do you want to bring up your panel?
Kevin, where are you at? He's back there. Oh, they brought the big guns. The council.
Somehow I have 12 people signed up for this. I don't know how many are on your panel, Senator.
I had my council president, but he may be coming. Okay, coming in.
He's made it.
He's made it. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mr. Vice Chair, for the record, Corey McCrae, Senator for the 45th Legislative District. HUR is not something that we're unfamiliar with, and we do have such a star-studded panel. But the main thing is just thinking about like the cliff in reference to HUR that could possibly happen, and how do we make sure that we have a placeholder to start to engage in that conversation. With me is Miko, with me is my council president, my mayor, and as you stated, there are a number of other folks that are coming to support this respective effort.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Good to see you all and good to be back in your committee again. As you know, I am Brandon Scott, the mayor of the great city of Baltimore, and I'm here to testify in support of SB 288. As you know, Baltimore is the only jurisdiction in Maryland that is responsible for maintaining all of its roads. That includes 2,000 miles of roadways, 1,400 traffic signals, 298 bridges, and 456 miles of alleys and major highways like I-83. And prior to 2010, we received roughly $200 million in HUR funding each year to manage this workload. With inflation, that would be around $300 million today. But as we know, HUR funding has not kept with the pace of inflation. In fact, the state reduced our share of HUR beginning in 2010. And while we understand very deeply the fiscal constraints of the time, we also see the damage. Studies show that the conditions of our roads cost Baltimore drivers nearly $3,000 per year. And I appreciate each and every one of you for that work to temporarily bring HUR shares back up to us for 12.2% for fiscal years 26 and 27. And as a result, we are finally starting to make progress on capital projects that are much needed. But as you heard from my senator, beginning in fiscal year 2028, that is set to decrease once again. And quite frankly, we cannot let that happen. Because of the years of deferred maintenance, the need is greater now than ever. Yet, we're working with a smaller HUR budget than we had in 2009. This is not sustainable for the city of Baltimore or our county partners. We recognize the state transportation budget needs right now and the need for reform, but we cannot allow further cuts at the local level. Our residents will pay for it. And for these reasons, I request a favorable report on SB 288.
Chair Gazone, Vice Chair Rosapap, and honorable members of the Budget and Taxation Committee, thank you for having me today. For the record, I'm Zeke Cohen, City Council President for Baltimore City. Pleased to be with my Mayor and Senator McCray as well.
His favorite senator.
My favorite senator from the 45th District. That was the mayor's joke. I stole it. Last night, I stood on Lawyers Mall with students from Baltimore City to advocate for transit funding. These students wake up unthinkably early in the morning and still cannot rely on being on time to school. And while we must fund more for our MTA and the Be More Bus program, those buses need roads to run on. That's why I'm here today urging a favorable report on Senate Bill 288. Baltimore has gotten stuck with the short end of highway user revenue formula for too long, and yet our maintenance obligations are greater than those of any other jurisdiction in the state, particularly due to the responsibility Baltimore has for maintaining local stretches of I-83 and Maryland 295. But as soon as you pass into Baltimore County on either of these roads, maintenance is the state's responsibility. It doesn't make sense. It's not fair. Baltimore needs to receive its fair share of HUR. Senate Bill 288 would ensure that by fiscal year 2031, Baltimore City would receive an additional $22.5 million in highway user revenue. At a time when our federal government is gambling with our shared investments, it is vital that state leaders do all they can to strengthen both state and local governments. Updating the highway user revenue formulas, local share will guarantee that Baltimore continues to thrive. And we all know that when Baltimore thrives, Maryland thrives. Baltimore's Department of Transportation already contends with the exacerbated costs of deferred and emergency maintenance as a result of years of disinvestment. We can't expect our city, the greatest economic hub in Maryland, to succeed further without receiving our fair share of HUR funding. Thank you for your consideration, and I urge a favorable vote.
Chairman Gazone, Vice Chair Rosa Pepe, and members of the committee. I'm MC Keegan Ayer, and I'm speaking today on behalf of Maryland Association of Counties as their president. I'm here in support of this bill, SB 288, and the clarifying amendment. This bill will address the impending cliff that we are currently facing for highway user revenue. As you know, this revenue provides a predictable stream of funding for counties to help us address our road repairs, local governments help more effectively maintain a safe and reliable road network. Right now, it also helps us plow our roads. And as you know, given the amount of snow and ice we've had, those calls are coming to us, and we are taking them hourly, if not more often. Local governments maintain more than 80% of the roads, and these funds allow us to provide basic projects such as road resurfacing and bridge repairs. They also help us address traffic improvements and safety improvements. For a county like Frederick County, which is where I represent, as fast as we're growing, we have a lot of improvements that we have to make to intersections that used to be perfectly fine, are now no longer fine, and we have to put in roundabouts, traffic signals, and what have you. This money is spent to address road conditions that our shared constituents use, see, and experience every single day. They want the job just done. It doesn't matter whether it's a state funding or a local funding. They want to make sure that the roads are usable, passable, and in these cases, clear of snow and ice. Counties don't have the authority to raise dedicated transportation money, nor do we set local fuel taxes or vehicle registration money fees. So this is how we pay to get the roads taken care of. MACO supports SB 288 and look forward to a favorable report. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and committee members, I'm Michael Sanderson with the Maryland Association of Counties. Other folks are going to talk about math, and I think the math is super compelling. It's in the fiscal note. You already know the story. You know the road miles. You know the dollars and cents. I want to offer just a little context. I was there when this happened. I've been here forever, seen how this went. You're in the middle of a BRFA discussion right now, right? We're in a pinch. The state's in trouble. You end up with a budget reconciliation process that's going to require, we're going to pause this formula. We're going to take a year off from doing this. We're going to make some nips and tucks to get through the tough times. But historically, you put things back. You make things right when times get better. This never got fixed. 2009 stunk. The banks were failing. The stock market is crashing. Unemployment's huge. Everybody's in line for Medicaid. Everybody's in line for unemployment. You ran out of cash. You needed to raid highway user money to make the budget work for a couple of years, but it never got put back properly. The counties are now sitting on 30 cents on the dollar of what was full funding. We've never gotten back. Baltimore City needs their full funding. The cities and towns need their full funding. The counties aren't even close to getting there. So the bill that's before you avoids a fiscal cliff, but please make no mistake, this story's not over. There's no state that does this. If you map the states for how do they take care of local roads, there's a gaggle of states where the state just runs everything. We'll fund it all, we'll pave them all, we'll maintain everything. There's some states that say, we'll let the locals do their own gas tax or a surcharge on your license plate or whatever, and then they'll let the locals pay for it themselves with their own transportation revenues. And then most states do the old Maryland system, where centralized revenues distributed so the locals can take care of all the roads that they own and maintain. Maryland is now the asterisk. We're like Hawaii. Not pictured on the map is this weird state, Maryland, that tells the county governments in particular, you have to maintain all these roads, and gives us a pittance in transportation revenues. Motorists believe they're paying for roads and bridges with their gas tax and with their car tax, and they're not. They're paying it in property taxes. If they knew that, they would hate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I get fired up.
No questions for this panel? Okay, so I'm going to go to the couple people that we have online and let this panel clear out and let whoever is on the next round get in the chairs while we hit the folks who are online. Maybe. I cannot read your name on there. Joseph? Yes? Hello? Can you hear me?
Right, I can now. It's
Okay,
Joe
great.
Seaman from Harford County.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee, my name is Joe Seaman. I'm Director of Public Works for Harford County. We strongly believe that Senate Bill 288 will help keep our county roads safe and effective for the public that lives, works, or travels in Harford County. Currently, Harford County receives approximately $5.5 million in highway user revenue. Those funds are used to construct local roadways and bridge projects, reduce the cost of repairs, and maintain safe and reliable roadways. Any loss of revenue will unquestionably result in more costly expenditures that our counties and our citizens must absorb. We take great pride in our commitment to traffic safety and longevity of service of all of our critical infrastructure, including our county road network. With that commitment comes a requirement to dedicate adequate resources to construct improvements to our roadways, bridges, storm drain inlets and pipeline systems, handicap ramps, and traffic control systems. A significant source of funding to these critical functions of our Department of Public Works was historically been highway user revenue. Although slowly rising in recent years, the total amount of HUR funding is still been only less than half of the amount committed back in 2009. This long period of underfunding has required Harford County to defer critical maintenance and repairs of our road infrastructure. For example, prior to 2009, we operated on a schedule of resurfacing our asphalt roadways every 15 to 20 years. That's a frequency to conform to national industry standard guidelines and focused on extending pavement life. The shortfall in HUR funding has required deferral of our maintenance efforts, causing our average resurfacing period to increase to over 30 years. We continue to experience further degradation of our aging road infrastructure, and the future costs for repair and maintenance will continue to escalate. We appreciate the intent of Senate Bill 288 to allow for distribution of additional funds to the county, and we consider it a positive step forward to improve the safety and reliability of our local roadway networks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Lenny Pfeiffer or Pfeiffer?
Pfeffer, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here in support of Senate Bill 288. Thank you, Senator McCray, for putting this in. So I know everybody in the room knows exactly what happened with the Great Recession. We got hit pretty hard. Dorchester County was getting about $4 million at that time. We've just now got to about 25%. We just now busted over $1 million after 16 years. Back then we had to lay off like 20 people. Well, 20 people was half of our roads department. And to put it in text of the size of the county and everything, we've taken about $54 million in property and interest and income taxes. 27 million of that goes to the school system. So we have to run the rest of the county on $27 million. And as far as roads go, we have over 650 miles of roadway. And to keep up on those, you know, for us to asphalt a mile of road is about $250,000 now. If we go and just tar and chip that, it's about $100,000 now. And it's extremely hard considering the cut that was taken and has not been come back up to where it was before the recession. And we have problems down here in Dorchester County. Saltwater intrusion. Our soil is so wet, it's always heaving the roads around here. And after that cut we took to the budget with the highway user funds being reduced, we are over 300 job work orders for roads, cross pipes, ditching. We're over 300 job work orders in the rears. And we're trying as hard as we can, but without the additional people that we used to have to take care of all these roads, it's just almost impossible for us to try to catch up. So these funds are just so vital to our county. I know they're vital to every county, but I just want to paint a small picture of what Dorchester County itself was going through. So with that in mind, I urge support for Senate Bill 288. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for our virtual witnesses? We have one more? Oh, there she is. Okay. Who is that? Oh, yeah, right. The sales, Councilman Sales.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So good afternoon, Chair Gazone, Vice Chair Rosa Pebb, and esteemed members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. My name is Lori Ann Sales, at-large Montgomery County Council member and chair of our council's Health and Human Services Committee. I want to express my unequivocal support for Senator McCray's bill, SB 288. Montgomery County and counties throughout Maryland must not bear the catastrophic burden of a highway user revenue funding cliff. The potential reduction and redirection of hundreds of millions of dollars to counties in the coming years would bring severe repercussions. The State Highway User Revenue Fund is the backbone of our Department of Transportation's operating budget, accounting for over 50% of our revenue. These funds are absolutely critical for essential road maintenance, ensuring that our residents can move safely and reliably. Every dollar allocated to repair potholes and maintain bridges allows us to direct our general funds towards other necessary day-to-day transportation projects that residents depend on, including street lighting, bridge inspections, sidewalk repairs, and traffic safety improvements to achieve our Vision Zero goals. Montgomery County is home to key transportation corridors such as the Capitol Beltway, I-270, I-95 interchanges. These highways are not just local routes. They serve travelers across the region and state. We must maintain them properly for the economic vitality of our entire state. If the funding cliff happens, counties will have no choice but to absorb these costs without the option to raise local transportation taxes. We're already facing significant pressure from the federal government as one of the jurisdictions most impacted by federal job cuts. Taking on long-standing state commitments is not a viable option for counties and threatens our financial stability. As an at-large council member representing Maryland's largest jurisdiction, I hear from residents and businesses every day about critical road safety and maintenance issues. Their frustration is palpable when they feel caught in the endless cycle between the local Department of Transportation and State Highway Administration, seeking solution for urgent roadway issues that threaten their safety. We cannot allow this failure to act erode public trust any further. We demand leadership and deserve stronger collaborations between state and local transportation officials, not more finger pointing or deflection. Senate Bill 288 is essential for ensuring stability and predictability in funding, allowing counties to address vital transportation needs without sacrificing other crucial services. For these compelling reasons, I urge a favorable vote on SB 288 without hesitation, and I thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you very much. Questions again for any of the virtual testifiers? Questions? Thank you all very much. We appreciate you joining us today. All right, back to those who are here. You can just, whoever wants to start, just introduce yourself and roll along the panel.
All right, we'll go in order. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm Martin Harris. I'm the Director of the Department of Public Works for Charles County. It's good to see you all. Strangely, again, on this very important subject for local governments. I'm not going to rehash a lot of what has been said before. I find myself in the position of actually echoing a lot of what Mike Sanderson said. But really, the key thing is, and this is why I'm in such a strong support for SB 88. This is really about restoring the partnership that's historically existed on highway user revenue and funding. A lot of my colleagues have already told some pretty, I think, striking stories about the cost and impacts of the cuts that we had back in 2009, which I was also here for in a different capacity, but certainly was here for as well. For Charles, getting really specific, we went from about $8 million in funding for HUR down to about $437,000 in funding. That's a 95% cut. Today, we are actually only still less than halfway back. But in those intervening 17 years, we've gone from about 1,500 miles of roads to just slightly under 2,000 miles or so in roads. So while the funding is less than half, we've increased in size by 20%. And those roads are now 17 years older, which require a lot more maintenance and a lot more care and feeding, as we're seeing now through the snow issue. So the struggle is very real. And as has been mentioned by my other colleagues, we don't have the tools to be able to address that the state has. However, for me personally, I'd like to see us get back to the long-term historic funding model that was in place by formula, which got us to 30 or 40%. But what we have here today with SB 280 is a wonderful, wonderful first step in that direction to provide assurances that not only are we looking at short-term budget relief to provide the funding that we need, but we are really getting back to restoring that long-standing collaboration and partnership between states and the counties and local governments. And so with that, I am here to give my strong and enthusiastic support to Senate Bill 288 and hope you would issue it a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Lauren Buckler. I'm the Director of Public Works and Transportation for Baltimore County. You know, you heard a lot of things, you heard a lot of numbers. Baltimore County has similar numbers, but at the end of the day, every single citizen in Maryland uses these roads. Even if they don't drive, they walk, they get on transit, they have to use these roads to get to those things. Every single voter uses these roads. Baltimore County has a $400 million deficit in roads. We also, if you look at the funding that we should have had it stayed its course since 2009, have a $454 million amount that would have come to Baltimore County. Surprise. That's without adding inflation in. Those numbers are exactly equal to where our deficit is in roads. Since Monday, DPWT for Baltimore County has taken 3,600 calls about plowing. 3,600 voters called us about their roads since Monday. Next week, it's going to be calls on potholes from 3,600 residents or more about the roads that they have to drive on. So I thank you, Senator McCray, for this bill to stop us from this fiscal cliff and help the counties at least chug along with where we're at. I second what you've heard from the other counties and the city on restoring funding or looking at solutions here as to how we deal with these backlogs for these roads that every citizen in Baltimore and in Baltimore County and Maryland uses. I urge a favorable vote on this bill and happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Todd Mon, a professional engineer in the state of Maryland. I'm the county administrator for Queen Anne's County. I'm here on behalf of the Queen Anne's County Commissioners in support of Senate Bill 288, which maintains a stable and predictable highway user revenue disbursement for all Maryland counties for essential road and bridge maintenance. And simply, we need quality roads and bridges because we all use them, as mentioned, to and from work, to get our kids to school, economic development, and obviously for emergency services. But what does it take? We have to have dedicated and consistent maintenance, and we have to have a reliable funding source to maintain our roads. So that is why the trust fund was created in 1968, and that became the revenue source for road maintenance and improvements for both state and local roads in Maryland. And this model worked very well for over 3 decades. And I've been around for 3 decades in Queen Anne's County, many of those years in our roads department at our Public Works agency. And I'll submit to you that this really started back in 2003 when highway user revenues were cut over $245 million statewide. Locally in my county, that cut was almost $4 million. And that really hurt. It hurt. I was over here in Annapolis back in those days, and they told us, hey, this is just a loan. We're going to pay this all back. We're going to make it right. That never happened. We never got paid back. Obviously, HURs did bounce back for a few years, and then in 2010, 2010, highway user revenues were forecasted to decline down to the economic crisis in the state. The General Assembly cut HUR and again reduced the local share down, strike 2. Lastly, the Board of Public Works cut the remaining local allocations of HUR that year by 90%. So for us in my county at that time, that brought us our allocation that year to a mere $260,000, was just enough money to pay our roads division staff 2 weeks for their time on the job. So we were out of money. That was strike 3. So what happened in Queen Anne's County at that time? We had to reduce force, like you've heard others. We have a continued huge backlog of deferred maintenance. We had to downsize the entire county government at that time. 16 years later, we're still not 100% recovered. So we do support 228 going forward. We're on the right track. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Justin Fiore here on behalf of the Maryland Municipal League in strong support of Senate Bill 288. I want to thank the sponsor, Senator Corey McCray, for being a champion of this issue and say, me too.
Thank you. David Dupay, private citizen, representing no one. No, but although for full disclosure, I do work in county government, but I'm not representing my employer today. There's a couple of, I'm testifying in support of Senate Bill 288 with a couple of suggested amendments, recognizing, however, that no one listened to me for 30 years at DLS, so what else is new? Couple of new points, though, I'd like to raise that no one has touched on. One is the complication of the GMVRA, the gasoline and motor vehicle revenue account that's used to distribute the money. And the Department of Transportation keeps a certain portion, and then there's a certain number of revenues that go into the gasoline and motor vehicle revenue account, the GMVRA. That is then, portions that are then again retained by the TTF 100%, and then it's split 80-20. At least in the current year, between the trust fund and the local jurisdictions. So the nuance there that I'd like to raise is that the last three major transportation revenue increases in 2013, 2024, and 2025, nearly all, if not all, of the revenue was dedicated 100% to the Transportation Trust Fund. So even though local jurisdictions were getting a percent of the GMVRA, they did not get any benefit of the revenue increases. So they were completely bypassed. So I'd like to suggest that the formula can be simplified. Since 2018, it's been a capital grant. It's not the money in the GMVRA anymore. It's a capital grant that's equal to the amount after you go through all the machinations and calculations. You can simplify it by taking the gross motor fuel and gross titling tax revenue and multiplying that by 17%. That gives you about the same amount as the current formula, which would be about $437 million, give or take. And then my second point that I'd like to make is that I think that what's the right percentage that should go to the local governments? If you look at the SHA 2024 mileage report, the vehicle miles traveled on local roads was 28%. So I think 28% at least is a logical number to try to land on. And so what my suggestion would be is to change the formula to be 17% of the motor fuel and titling tax, and then phase that in over multiple years to get to 28%. It would make it more palatable to MDOT, and you could achieve the same goals of restoring the money for local jurisdictions. So there you go.
All right. Is there one more person? Is there anybody else here to testify on this? Oh.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Odette Ramos. I'm the councilwoman for the 14th District in Baltimore City. Thank you all for what you do, and thank you to my senator. Just wanted to echo my mayor, my council president, as well as all of our colleagues here, how important this funding is. We've talked about the numbers, but I'll tell you, I have, I think, the most traffic calming requests in my district, and the traffic calming requests would be not able to be fulfilled if we don't have this money to do HUR, to the HUR money for all of the other things that we need. Otherwise, we have to backfill those dollars. So as you know, roads, bridges, traffic calming, speed bumps, these are things that our residents see, feel, and touch. And, that is really the mark of local government, and we need your help to be able to get it right and do what we need to do for our residents. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for this last group? Very good. That concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 288. We're going to go slightly out of order again, and we're going to bring up, because we're happy to have the chair of the Finance Committee here, Senate Bill 247. Chair Beidel.
Mr. Chairman, can I bring up some members of the panel?
Please.
Thank you. Thank you for taking me in this order. I appreciate it. Yes. Mr. Cole, are you coming up? Is Dr. Hemingway here?
She is here.
Okay, she'll catch up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members, and Vice Chair Rosa Pep, and members of the Budget and Tax Committee. Senate Bill 247, thank you for allowing me to present Senate Bill 247, Biotechnology Investment Incentive Tax Credit Conversion to Grant Program. Senate Bill 247 simply modernizes Maryland's biotech investment incentive by simplifying access for individual investors, making the program more effective and competitive, and strengthening support for venture capital attraction to the state for the state's growing life sciences sector. This does not change income to the state. There should be no fiscal note on this bill. It just converts the BITC, B-I-I-T-C, to a grant program, removes structural barriers, provides faster and more reliable benefits to investors, and can make Maryland a more compelling place for early-stage biotech funding. We worked with the Comptroller's Office to create this bill. They supported the concept, and currently BITC operates as an income tax credit, meaning investors must file a Maryland tax return to benefit. Many investors, especially those new to Maryland life sciences, find the process opaque or difficult to navigate, and some simply don't claim the credit because the complexity dissuades them. By converting the tax credit to a direct grant, Senate Bill 247 ensures that the incentive reaches investors without requiring them to offset tax liability first. You're going to hear from a constituent in my district why this is so important to biotechnology investment in the state of Maryland, and I would request a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair Gazzoni, members of the committee. Again, and thank you to our sponsor on this. This is part of a long-term negotiation and compromise with the Comptroller's Office that is matching what Chair Beidel demonstrated in terms of just difficulty in making this tax credit work, but then also remembering that people like Dr. Hemingway and Ekfora Capital are ambassadors for our biotech community across the entire country. The Biotechnology Investment Incentive Tax Credit is utilized to solicit dollars from states from California, Massachusetts, to all bring them here to grow our biotech sector. I'll also say that our BITC here in Maryland, if you compare that to the other states that have this type of program, it's much smaller than those other programs. So we're just trying to make it work better. And I just wanted to note one thing. We are favorable for this, but when this was drafted, the allocation for the BITC previously, the statutory requirement was $12 million. The drafter reduced that down to $10 million. And we would ask that it retain the $12 million that it originally had allocated and that it be sustained at that level. It would have no fiscal note, would not change the fiscal note on this, so we would just ask that that $12 million be retained. And so for that, we would ask for a favorable report. And now I have Dr. Hemingway. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deborah Hemingway, and I'm a PhD biophysicist and the founder and managing partner of Ekfora Capital, which is a Baltimore-based venture capital firm focused on financially supporting biotech and medical device startup companies here in Maryland. I am here in support of this bill, which would convert the BITC program into a grant program, thereby streamlining the process and making the program more accessible to the investors. Maryland has extraordinary scientific talent. We are home to world-renowned academic and government medical research institutions, including the NIH, FDA, Johns Hopkins, and the University of Maryland, as well as other leading research institutions across the state. Yet we have historically lacked significant early-stage capital that's required to turn these science-generated ideas at these prestigious institutions into companies that create jobs, promote economic growth, and establish a long-term tax base. The current tax credit structure has been helpful, but in practice, it's overly burdensome and hinders participation from the very investors and startups that we're trying to attract to grow their businesses here and remain in our state. A simplified grant structure, such as what this bill proposes, solves this problem directly by streamlining the BITC process and making the program both easier to access and to use. From my direct experience investing in 16 Maryland-based companies, I can attest to the fact that capital determines where startup companies locate, where they hire, and where they choose to grow. Converting this program to a grant will attract outside capital, accelerate company formation, and strengthen Maryland's innovation economy. I will also note that the Comptroller's Office submitted a supporting letter noting that this statement will streamline administration, free up agency resources, and allow investors to receive the funds in a more timely and efficient manner. So I respectfully urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 247. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
There's another name on here, but doesn't seem like it fits. Is that?
The affordable housing.
Yeah. You didn't have anybody else, did you? Okay. Questions for this panel? Thank you all very much. Okay, back to Senator McCray. Senate Bill 287.
Mr. Chair, I've never had 12 witnesses before, so that was surprising. For the record, Senate Bill 287.
Noted.
Noted. Senate Bill 287, Corey McRae, representing the 45th Legislative District. And this bill is pretty simple. It just gives authorizing opportunities for our local jurisdictions to be able to do non-contiguous TIFs.
Very good.
Me next, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Cole, you only get one bill a day. So.
Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the committee. My name is Joe Meyerhoff, and I'm here representing the Workforce Housing Alliance of Maryland.
That makes sense now. You were signed up for the last bill.
Oh, well. This is the bill I'm testifying. Thank you for your time today.
Excellent.
I'm here to discuss a simple but powerful amendment to our state's TIF legislation. Adding 4 words will unlock a transformative change: non-contiguous blighted area. Right now, TIFs can be used for housing, but only in areas of neighborhoods that are grouped together. The problem? Vacant properties don't cluster neatly. They are usually scattered throughout our communities. This amendment changes that. For the first time, Maryland counties and municipalities will have the tools to redevelop these scattered vacant residential areas. Here's the good news. It isn't complicated. Many counties already have the capacity to issue and administer TIFs. Housing TIFs work exactly like any other TIF. Repayment comes from residential property taxes, and the state carries no liability for bond repayment. Baltimore City just proved this works. They issued $28.8 million in non-recourse contiguous bonds and saw demand for $389 million. That's a 13-to-1 ratio, showing investors confidence in this approach. Income restrictions have been discussed, and here's our thinking. By eliminating blighted areas, we empower each jurisdiction to address their unique needs. Some may choose multifamily development, others income-restricted renovations. The common thread: we are eliminating blight. With this legislation, Maryland becomes a catalyst for reversing decades of disinvestment across our cities, counties, and towns. Keep going. The evidence is clear. Eliminating blighted areas reduces crime, drug use, and the activities that destabilize neighborhoods. This creates real fiscal benefits. Every jurisdiction spends enormous sums on arrests, code enforcements, and criminal trials. Preventing those problems saves real money. This amendment is straightforward, proven, and ready to work. I urge your support to give Maryland communities the tools they need to rebuild. Thank you. We would respectfully request a positive report on Senate Bill 287.
And I'm going to take the chair's guidance and just be here to answer any questions.
Good bill.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right.
289. The panel come up. Perfect. Mr. Chair, just to keep things moving, Corey McRae, Senator for the 45th District. Here in reference to Senate Bill 289, Concentration of Poverty School Grants Program, what this does is just simply sustain and give the opportunity to expand to make sure that we're pouring to the most important gifts that we have, which are our children, around arts, social studies, physical education, things of that nature, just to make sure that we're leaning in with our young folks, Mr. Chair.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Rachel McGrain, and I'm the Executive Director at Arts Education in Maryland Schools. I'm also a proud graduate of Howard County Public Schools and the University of Maryland, a former educator in our great Baltimore City Public Schools, and a current District 13 constituent and mom.
Coming for your heart.
I'm testifying today in strong support of SB 289, which will eliminate the sunset timeline on the allowable use of concentration of poverty funds to support the arts, among other subjects necessary for a well-rounded education. At Ames, we envision a public education system that supports, cultivates, nurtures, and uplifts all students through a robust arts education experience so they can thrive in a healthy society. The arts provide a unique way of learning and experiencing the world that is so critical to every child's development. I know this to be true through my own personal experience, and my time at Ames has proven this over and over again as I've had the privilege to bear witness to incredible arts instruction and communities around the state. Especially in schools where needs are high and resources are stretched, subjects such as the arts can often seem extra and therefore not receive needed investment. But in fact, art subjects are often the ones with the greatest impact on students. The music class that helps get a student to school on time every day to take their place in the percussion section. The dance class that helps a student work through their emotions through movement. The theater class that instills a love of literature, the art class that tells a struggling student you are capable. Continuing the allowable use of concentration of poverty funds to support subjects including the arts will allow schools and communities to continue making funding choices that are best for their students. A world-class education is one that includes the arts, so let's wrap our arms around our students and extend the allowable use of this funding in perpetuity. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of this committee. My name is Kristen Wong-Callisto. I am here as the Vice Chair of Story Tapestries, as well as the Executive Director of the Montgomery County Public Schools Educational Foundation. My favorable support for SB 289 is shaped by years of teaching special education in Hawaii and leading statewide school improvement policy in the state of Washington. I also have a doctorate in education leadership. While Blueprint for Maryland's future is visionary, my experience in policy implementation across multiple states has taught me one hard truth. Legislation is only as powerful as its specificity. Without clear language provided in this bill, we risk the original intent of the law being lost in translation between the State House and the classroom. The bill provides the specificity and funding stability to ensure arts remain an essential part of every Maryland student's education, as it is often the first to be on the chopping block during budget constraints. Arts education supports a world-class system of education in several ways. First, equity. We know that when arts funding is reduced, students in under-resourced schools suffer the most. Their families and school and PTA cannot fill the gap through private means, widening the opportunity gap. Story Tapestry's data from their 24-25 evaluation shows that art funding directly bridges this opportunity gap. 65% of staff noted that programs like Regular Story provide critical access to art resources in homes that families cannot otherwise afford. The second is instructional depth and impact. The arts are a vital tool for personalizing learning and integrating literacy and math through UDL. Arts include art instruction, cultural experiences through assemblies and field trips, after-school and out-of-school time programs, and professional development for our educators. In Story Tapestry's Chart Mental Health Initiative for Adolescents, 100% of participant educators reported learning new skills to integrate the arts into core instruction, meeting MSDE standards while boosting student engagement. And finally, social, emotional, and mental health support. The arts create a sense of belonging for many students. Through that Chart Mental Health Initiative, 98% of youth increased their self-efficacy in using the arts to manage their well-being, with 95% reporting they plan to use these tools to process emotions in the future. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Budget and Tax Committee, as well as Senator Harris. My name is Rhea Gupta. I'm the Executive Director of Strong Schools Maryland, as well as co-chair of the Blueprint Coalition, which represents over 30 organizations working to ensure the full funding and faithful implementation of the Blueprint for Maryland's future. We're here in strong support of Senate Bill 289. I'll keep it really short. You heard from this incredible panel. Just from the outset, the Blueprint recognized that community schools serving students experiencing poverty need the ability to respond to changing complex student needs over time. This bill continues that ability. We urge the favorable report on this bill, and thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for this panel? There's no one else here to testify on this, correct? Not that I know of. Okay. Anyone?
I think Joy from the AIB is here.
Okay. Joy? Come on up and sit down. Another good one, Senator McCray.
What did he say?
Another good one.
Okay, oh yeah, I thought it was gonna get voted out. I heard that District 13 and I was like.
I almost did. I almost did.
I saw that look in your eyes.
I thought about it, but not everybody's here. I mean, there's at least 2 out of 3 on this one for sure. Out of your, Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. Good afternoon, Chair Gazone, members of the committee. I'm Joy Schaefer. I'm the Government Relations Director for the AIB. I want to thank Senator McCray for this bill and for Ames for bringing this issue to our attention. They brought it to the AIB's attention in September at their board meeting, and in November, the board approved these provisions to be moved forward in this legislative session. So I just wanted to clarify that we're supportive of the provisions in this bill, and they're also included in the AIB's bill this session, House Bill 409 and Senate Bill 311.
Very good. Questions for this witness? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job, Senator Harris. All right. All right, Senator Guy, let's see what we can do with yours.
Awesome.
271.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have members from my panel here along with me.
I'm here, sir.
All right, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I'm here to present Senate Bill 271. Senate Bill 271 makes a narrow but important correction to Maryland's income tax law by ensuring that retired District of Columbia Fire Rescue and Emergency Services personnel who reside in Maryland are treated consistently with other public safety retirees under existing law. These are also individuals who spent decades in physically demanding, high-risk public safety roles, often responding throughout our region, most of whom are lifelong Maryland residents. Under current law, however, they are excluded from a retirement income subtraction that applies to similarly situated public safety professionals solely because their service was rendered in the District of Columbia. Senate Bill 271 addresses that gap. The bill does not expand the benefit or change eligibility standards. It simply clarifies that retired DC fire rescue and EMS personnel qualify as public safety employees for purposes of the existing $15,000 subtraction modification, provided they meet the same age and retirement requirements already in statute. This legislation recognizes equivalent service, applies existing policy on a parity basis, and aligns with the original intent of the General Assembly's public safety retirement income tax subtraction. You will also hear today from representatives of IAFF Local 36, DC retired firefighters, and the Maryland Professional Firefighters Association, who will speak to the dedicated service these retirees provided and the importance of consistent treatment under Maryland law. And with that, Mr. Chair, I respectfully request a favorable report on SB 271.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Jeff Buttle, President of the Professional Firefighters of Maryland, representing over 10,000 active retired firefighters, paramedics, and emergency services personnel. This is actually my first bill this session testifying on, so it's a pleasure to be before your committee, Mr. Chair. I'm here more from a historical perspective because I was part of this when we first did this bill back in. I had to go back and dig through the archives to figure out when we first did this bill. It was actually in the 2017 session, and ironically, Mr. Chair, you were the Senate sponsor on that bill. But I do recall when we crafted this, we had some discussion on how the District of Columbia would fit in. And under the current statute, it does say employees of the United States. And I remember the discussion being because of DC's unique status where they get their funding through Congress, that it was intended for DC to be captured under employee of the United States because they do get their funding and approval through Congress. And I believe, and we have our DC IFF president here today who's going to testify next. I believe for a while the DC firefighters were getting this credit, and then somewhere along the way somebody made the determination that the statute wasn't clear enough, and they stopped getting the credit. But I do recall historically that it was originally intended for them to receive it, and that we had thought we had captured them under the statutory language that says employee of the United States. So just wanted to come today and provide that historical context. I actually didn't remember that you were the bill sponsor in 2017, so I'm like, well, I'm going to bring this up, and this should be an interesting conversation between the chair and I. So happy to be here, and certainly urge a favorable report for what I see is really a clarification to implement what was originally intended by the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the Committee on Budget and Taxation. My name is Dave Hoagland. I'm the president of the DC Firefighters Association, IFF Local 36, affiliated with the Metro Washington Council, the AFL-CIO. I'm submitting this testimony in support of Senate Bill 271, which clarifies an existing retirement income tax subtraction to include retired District of Columbia Fire Rescue and Emergency Services personnel. As it stands now, retirees who live in Maryland are not eligible for the retirement income subtraction because their years of protecting lives and property were served in the District of Columbia. Though many retirees' pensions are fully or partially funded by the federal government, they are not clearly eligible for the retirement tax subtraction. Senate Bill 271, should it be passed, would recognize these Maryland residents for their years of dedicated service protecting lives and property in the region, would provide meaningful financial relief in retirement, and would allow these men and women to remain in their communities where they live as active firefighters. The DC Firefighters Association represents over 2,000 active firefighters, 1,100 of whom call Maryland home. We also have an additional 1,100 retired firefighters who live in Maryland. The tragic mid-air collision over the Potomac River 1 year ago today is an example of how DC firefighters not only answer the call in the district, but are responders across the entire national capital region. That incident highlighted the coordination between the District of Columbia and its regional partners in Maryland and Virginia. DC firefighters, including underwater divers, responded from their homes in Maryland to assist in the recovery efforts. Large-scale incidents do not respect jurisdictional boundaries, and mutual aid is a key to a positive outcome. It's well known that firefighters are exposed to on-the-job hazards like toxic gases, sleep deprivation associated with shift work, and cumulative stress. The health conditions that can follow can cause financial and emotional strain. The income tax deductions for retired public safety employees, to include the District of Columbia, will help to alleviate that strain and properly honors their years of public service. I want to thank Senator Don Geil for introducing this needed amendment, and I also would like to thank President Buttle, sitting next to me, for his solidarity and supporting his fellow firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jennings.
Thank you. So looking at the bill and the errors of the previous sponsor that we're trying to fix, no. In all seriousness, is there any other jurisdiction that's not incorporated now if we bring this in? Like, is there any firefighter serving in another municipality outside the state or agency that we might not be including?
No, when I can speak to originally back in 2017, it wasn't designed to include people who live in another state. The District of Columbia was.
No, I think they all have to live in Maryland, but they work in another.
Yeah, it wasn't intended to cover. The only discussion we had was just the District of Columbia. It wasn't. We never had any discussion about if you live in Maryland but work in Pennsylvania or work in Delaware. That was not part of the original language in the
So the original intent in 2017 was to include DC?
Yes, sir. Under what I believed at the time was employee of the United States. And when we said the employee of the United States, what does that mean? It certainly includes the federal firefighters, because we have a lot of them that work around the state of Maryland. And we thought that captured DC because DC is kind of a unique entity in and of itself and receives it like funding and approval and everything from Congress. So we thought when we said the employee of the United States, not only were we including the federal firefighters, we believed that we were including the District of Columbia firefighters as well. And my understanding is that for a while they were receiving the credit, and then somewhere along the line, somebody took a look at the statute and said, wait, they shouldn't be receiving it. So that's what we're trying to fix here and clarify.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions from the committee? Well, we'll see who's next, who's going to bring either a constituent up of mine or a bill that I used to do, some shameless way of getting their bills passed here in this committee.
Do what you got to do.
There's got to be something else. All right, thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator King, members of the committee. Senator Malcolm Augustine here on behalf of Senate Bill 281, asking for your favorable report. Big picture, colleagues, this will increase our investment in WMATA to ensure that it remains in a state of good repair and acts as an underpinning infrastructure to our greater Prince George's, Montgomery County, and regional economy. This bill is contingent on like adoption with fellow compact members from the Commonwealth of Virginia and the District of Columbia, who we have been working with over the last couple of years on this piece of legislation. And just to level set on the importance of WMATA, over 107,000 folks from Marylanders daily ride the bus. Over 130,000 Marylanders use Metro Rail, and it is absolutely essential to the mobility of our region and millions of Marylanders. It does extend beyond that to 1,400 folks from Frederick County, 4,000 from Anne Arundel, a couple thousand from Howard, and almost 2,000 from Baltimore City as well, who daily use the Metro. This body in 2018 passed landmark legislation to establish a capital funding structure, dedicated funding for Metro. And that really helped to transform the Metro system that we now see today, because it wasn't always that way. The system was previously had been allowed to kind of decay. There wasn't enough investment into making sure that it was a safe and reliable system, but by incorporating that dedicated funding, we were able to move it in the right direction to a state of good repair, such that the system where it is today, where it's safe, it's reliable, people are utilizing it, and the system really also acts as the hub for business in our metro area. And so what we have now is that it really does act as that engine. It contributes significantly to our state's employment and tax revenue. We have over 10,000 Marylanders who work at Metro as well as a part of that, but we really do have to make sure to maintain it. We have talked about this within this session, making sure that we have affordability and that we have growth in our economy. And Metro is really central to that for us in the region and for our state. Transportation is the second largest household expenditure after housing and consumes a significant amount of people's incomes. And so what we can use the Metro for, and what it does, particularly for low-income Marylanders, is provide usable transportation that allows them to save likely in the neighborhood of like $10,000 a year, particularly if they're able to remove one car from their household. That would allow for them to reclaim all those dollars back for them, while also helping us as it relates to mobility in the region. So that's something that we think that's very, very critical, that is a part of the affordability of Metro. Tying both affordability and economic growth together with transit-oriented development, what we have seen is that a significant amount of economic activity happens around our Metro sites, including for affordable housing, which we've had significant investments around Metros with affordable housing that's in the ground and is still coming up today. Because there's really a significant historic investments in transit-oriented development around our Metro sites. Those things that are closest to there, they act as those hubs for jobs, shopping, education. And we've done it at various places inside of Montgomery and Prince George's County, particularly at New Carrollton, where we have over 360 units, which are complete, 100% income restricted, to ensure that an accessible transit-oriented life is available to all in that location. We've had literally over $1 billion of investment that's occurred right there in New Carrollton, coming out of the ground from what was otherwise the parking lots. There's been additional investments there, but it's only because the Metro has been reliable and safe and has acted as a way to be able to really help people to move. We must maintain that. We have a similar investment that's happened at Grosvenor, 220 units of senior housing, again, supporting people to being able to age and live in place. That's very supportive of what we have. And we have other investments as well in Bethesda, University of Maryland College Park, Baltimore, and other places around that where these hubs are so connected by virtue of metro and transit-oriented development, which is why this is such an important piece of legislation. We also have more to support the Blue Line corridor that's on its way, including at Capitol Heights, which this entity has set a piece in place for us to be able to invest in there. But it really does depend on, as the name says, on the Blue Line corridor being a functioning and working system for the folks who live there, for us to make it a workable and that the investments will continue to come. I'll also say just from an economic and growth development standpoint, Metro and it working and being successful is very important as it related to keeping Marriott here in our state, where the folks moved from away from it to closer to where the Metro was. It's not an accident, because the Metro's working and it was accessible, and it's become better and over the course of time. We also have access, although they're going through whatever challenges they're going through, but to Amazon, and they also came, and we still do benefit from that. And from those opportunities, because we are one interconnected system as a whole. And so, but what we do now find is that and what this legislation does is it takes from that and it says, listen, we know how critical this piece of infrastructure, building infrastructure for us is in our region, but what we haven't done is keep up with things like inflation. We haven't done is keep up with the increases in costs, and so we do need to increase our investment here in order to keep this economic engine going and for us to continue to make sure that we continue to have growth that is occurring inside of the region. As I mentioned at the outset, this is legislation that is done in concert with only. The commitments only occur not for a couple of years, but we do need to work closely now because we're doing this in concert with our colleagues in Virginia and in the District of Columbia, all the members of the compact. So, Madam Majority Leader and Mr. Vice Chair, I would love for us to hear from the panel and then be able to answer questions. Is that okay?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Who wants to start?
Charlie Scott.
I will start. Chair Rosapep, Senator King, committee members, thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Charlie Scott, and on behalf of Metro and our board of directors, I thank Senator Augustine for his steadfast support of transit in the National Capital Region. This bill is critical to making the 2018 dedicated funding passed by the General Assembly sustainable into the future. With that funding, we have transformed to become an industry leader in rail reliability, and our customers are responding. We lead the industry in ridership growth, delivering 264 million trips in FY25, a 9% increase over FY24. Metro Rail has returned to automated train control and design speeds, reducing run times and generating savings that we invest back into service. On bus, we have significantly expanded our frequent bus network. And we have a safer Metro Rail system. Crime is at an all-time low, and new fare gates have reduced fare evasion by 82%. And transit police officers are deterring crime and making our riders feel more secure. For our capital program, with a static dedicated funding level of $500 million, each year we allocate a growing portion of that funding to debt service. Impacts of inflation and post-COVID shifts of capital funds to support the operating program have put further pressure on our long-term capital program. Approving SB 281 will support a revolving bond program to sustain Metro's capital program for decades to come. And the benefit of these investments extend well beyond Prince George's and Montgomery counties, with our customer base for Metro Bus and especially Metro Rail extending well beyond the WMATA compact zone. Additionally, WMATA is a major employer in Maryland, with over 9,000 of our 13,000 employees living across the state. And Metro's capital program supports thousands of manufacturing jobs here in Maryland, both in Hagerstown and Westminster. To sustain the progress we have made rebuilding Metro and to continue our role fostering the economy and mobility of Marylanders, I urge the committee to provide a favorable report on SB 281. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brian Wyville with Amalgamated Transit Union Local 689. I had the pleasure of serving on the DMV Moves Community Partner Advisory Group for a year and a half. The room was filled with serious transit advocates, experts, community members, and representatives of the business community. Many of us were disappointed with the trajectory the discussions went. DMV Moves launched as a once-in-a-generation rethinking of capital area transit collaboration, cooperation, and planning for the future. It was the first of its kind since 1997's Regional Mobility Panel. The only reason I bring that up is to say and emphasize that the costs brought before you today are not generated out of thin air or idealism. They are the result of financial realities and compromise between multiple stakeholders across different jurisdictions. Over time, the financial realities and narrowed ambitions forced the once impressive agenda to winnow down until we were able to tackle the serious state of good repair backlog for the future and set it to industry standard levels with expanded capital funding, cost efficiencies through automating rail operator jobs, and asking regional partners to develop their own bus rapid transit programs. The DMV Moves plan was an agreement made out of compromise between funding partners, not one to boldly expand transit to meet the needs necessarily of the region in 2050, but the money that was allocated to Metro in 2018 has all been bonded to pay for essential projects. WMATA now faces a capital funding cliff if legislators do not act again, but this time explicitly aiming to future-proof that capital funding so that it grows at a reasonable and predictable 3% rate. In short, SB 281 will help ensure the long-term financial stability of WMATA's capital budget. Legislators must pass it to safeguard the region's existing investments in transit. And I want to draw a particular attention to specific language that withholds additional capital funding from WMATA if it fails to enter into a workforce transition agreement with its unions representing impacted workers whose positions may be eliminated due to rail automation. We took issue with DMV Moves focus on the, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Majority Leader, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for having me. My name is Clark Mercer. I'm the Executive Director of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, known as COG. And grateful for Maryland's long-term support of WMATA and for Senator Augustine bringing this bill before your consideration. Quick bit about COG. We work with 24 local governments in and around the District of Columbia, all of Northern Virginia down to Prince William and Loudoun, and suburban Maryland, Charles County, Frederick, Montgomery, and Prince George's County. As was just referenced, over the last 18 months, COG, along with WMATA, pulled together almost every chamber from the region, the Greater Washington Partnership, the Board of Trade, our partners in labor and the environmental groups to come together and answer the question, what is the amount of funding that can put WMATA on a sustainable path forward so we're not back here in 5 or 10 years talking about a fiscal cliff? What will be manageable for the bill payers, i.e. the Commonwealth of Virginia, Maryland, and D.C., and what is predictable for Metro so they can bond on their capital side, pay off those bonds, and issue new ones, and have a revolving bond program. And the total that came out was $460 million starting in FY29. That's July 1st, 2028. So WMATA's not back facing a fiscal cliff where the system is unreliable and unsafe. That money, if committed to WMATA now, they can plan their capital budgets moving forward. The Maryland share is roughly $150 million. We are working with your counterparts in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The Senate Majority Leader, Scott Serville, is carrying similar legislation to meet Virginia's share of this, and Delegate Rip Sullivan, who was previously carried by Delegate Mark Sickles, who's now the Commonwealth Secretary of Finance. So we feel good about the commitment coming from the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the district's budget process is starting now and will be in parallel along with your General Assembly session. So we're grateful for the long-term support of Metro by Maryland, and we know that you will continue to be strong partners moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, tell me your name one more time because you weren't on this list.
Sure, I am Monica on the list. Clark Mercer from the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. Thank you.
Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Lauren Magnato Watkins, and I'm the Director of Regional Mobility and Infrastructure at the Greater Washington Partnership. The partnership is a nonprofit alliance of nearly 50 leading employers across Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. collectively supporting upwards of 640,000 jobs. Alongside our table of employers, we work to address critical workforce, transportation, and economic development challenges facing the Baltimore, D.C. to Richmond region. We strongly support SB 281, which would authorize Maryland to provide an annual grant of at least $150 million, growing 3% annually, to support WMATA's capital program. As reflected in our written comments, we respectfully urge the committee to consider advancing this funding to FY28 rather than FY29. Earlier funding provides greater budget certainty, allowing WMATA to issue contracts, retain skilled workforce, and avoid disruptions to critical capital projects. As reflected in my panelist comments, we know WMATA is a critical economic driver for Maryland. It employs more than 9,000 Marylanders, representing over 68% of its total workforce. Its capital program alone generates approximately $142 million in wages, and metro stations and bus stops in Maryland generate an estimated $2.68 billion in property tax revenue, supporting local governments, housing, and businesses statewide. This funding request was developed through the DMV Moves process, which the partnership was lucky enough to participate in via the Community Partners Task Force. Through this inclusive regional dialogue, WMATA demonstrated a strong commitment to transparent reporting and continued cost efficiency. These efforts include publishing a 20-year capital plan every 5 years and providing annual performance and funding reports to COG's Transportation Planning Board. If passed, SB 281 would strengthen system performance and reliability for Maryland residents, who account for approximately 135,000 daily trips on Metro Rail. Long-term predictable funding is essential to modernizing current infrastructure. For these reasons, thank you so much. For these reasons, we urge a favorable report on SB 281 and respectfully ask the committee to consider moving funding up to FY28. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? I have one last person, Carrie Kasicki.
Hi.
Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Carrie Kasicki, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Coalition for Smarter Growth. We advocate for walkable, bikeable, inclusive, and transit-oriented communities, and we work extensively in suburban Maryland, focused on Montgomery and Prince George's counties. The Metro Rail, bus, and paratransit systems, as you've heard, are foundations of the economy and affordable living in the Maryland suburbs of Washington, D.C. Marylanders depend on Metro. They depend on it to get around. They depend on it to get to work, to get to school, and they depend on it also for, as you've heard, a lot of tax revenue, jobs, and attracting folks to our region. So the 2018 funding deal between Maryland, D.C., and Virginia has been hugely effective. We have seen customer satisfaction this year at an all-time high. WMATA service is faster, more frequent, and more reliable because of this investment. But because the 2018 funding was not indexed to inflation, we are risking a permanent funding shortfall if we don't make changes. There's still time to fix this. That's what this bill will do. With timely action and collaboration between Maryland, D.C., and Virginia, we can avert this funding shortfall and make sure that we're providing adequate funding for this lifeline of our region. For this reason, we ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's it for this bill. Okay, Senator Hedelman, you want to take yours? Senate Bill 305.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Shelley Hedelman. I'm Senator from District 11 in Baltimore County, and I'm pleased to be here today to present Senate Bill 305. What this bill does is builds on an action that we took back in 2024. We enabled the governor in fiscal years 26 through 28 to include $1 million to be used for certain nonprofit organizations to provide training to formerly incarcerated individuals in auto repair. We know there's lots of research out there that talks about how difficult and challenging it is for formerly incarcerated people to be employed. 60% of those coming out, and there are about 86,000 people in Maryland each year who are released from jails and prisons, and they have extremely challenging times finding employment. We know that being unemployed contributes to their recidivism. And so there are programs out there that are really doing a wonderful and wonderfully successful job at training people behind bars for skills and certifications so that they are employed when they come out. One of them is, there's a testimony, I believe, that was circulated a little bit late, called a program called Vehicles for Change. They actually do incredible work with folks behind bars to train them to become auto technicians, and then have a wonderful system outside of folks who are ready and prepared to hire them, and they're well-paying jobs. They have certifications. Each year, they also present vehicles that have been worked on by these individuals to veterans who need them to get to employment. There's one such dealership in my district. I had the opportunity to meet and talk with the head of that dealership, who said, I would hire anyone, like as many people as they will send me, I will hire. They are tremendous employees, the folks who've been through this training program, and they're, again, they're being well paid, have terrific skills. So what this bill would do would just extend for 1 year to fiscal year 29, the authorization of the governor to include $1 million for this program. I know that many programs like this have suffered funding cuts at the federal level, and so it is important for us as a state to support and continue to support the successful programs that are helping Marylanders who face real substantial challenges. So I urge you to support Senate Bill 305. And with that, I would turn it over to
John Pica.
Hi, Senator. Panelists.
Hi, Senator. Thank you. I'd like to thank I'm here on behalf of Vehicles for Change, a program many of you are familiar with. I'd like to thank the senator from the 11th District for introducing the bill, and she is correct. It simply extends the funding. But, you know, it doesn't extend the funding because there's been no funding. So the funding was allowed, authorized. The language, of course, says the governor may include in the budget. But in 2024, under the guidance of the senator from the east side of Baltimore City, the bill was sponsored in the 2024 session. So in successive fiscal years, the program has not been funded. So you included, this committee started the inclusion of $500,000 in the budget, which the House concurred with, and that was in the budget for fiscal year 2025, I think, yeah.
Yes.
But the governor has not included it. So you gave Vehicles for Change $500,000. They trained people, and now the money's gone. And we're hoping that this bill can pass. We do have a suggestion. So this bill puts it in what it's called now, GOCAP. I don't know what it's, crime prevention and policy. I would suggest that you put it in the Department of Labor, which has all of the reentry programs. So I can draft the amendment and submit it to you. If this bill were not to pass for some reason, I would hope that the committee would find it in their wisdom to include some money for Vehicles for Change in the budget like they did in 2024. I'm happy to answer any questions. Urge a favorable report with amendments. Thank you.
I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Bailey, do you want to do your Senate Bill 291?
Senator Simon Mayor just spoke.
Well, he's on my list.
Okay.
Am I excused? I'm excused. I get out of here.
Look, I tried. Madam Chair, distinguished members of the committee, Senator Bailey, representing District 29, St. Mary's and Calvert County. We'll try to be brief. Senate Bill 291 is designed to help victims of fraud by allowing a credit against state income tax for income taxes and penalties attributable to an early withdrawal of retirement funds due to financial exploitation. Unfortunately, as we are all aware, too many of our constituents fall victim to different forms of financial fraud or exploitation. You can read my written testimony. I just want to point out one thing, that in the bill before you, the credit is an amount equal to the lesser of the state income tax attributable to an early withdrawal of retirement funds due to this financial exploitation or federal tax penalties paid by the eligible taxpayer in accordance with 72 of the Internal Revenue Code. This was done to limit the financial impact of this legislation. However, this may have been inadvertently left out for people who this credit was intended to benefit. After discussions with the House sponsor and advocates of the bill, I will be submitting an amendment, and I think it just came through, to strike the reference to the federal penalties under this section and instead add a maximum credit allowance of $80,000 to limit the bill's physical impact. I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 291. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Michael Winkleman?
Thank you, Senators. Mike Winkleman here on the Maryland Association for Justice. First, I want to thank Senator Bailey for sponsoring this bill. I'm a trial lawyer, and part of the people I represent are elderly people who have been the victims of fraud, who have been scammed out of significant amounts of money. These are the calls that we all get on our phone that unfortunately sometimes are picked up, and the scammers are generally located in foreign countries, working in call centers. They build trust, primarily of elderly persons, and through this trust convince them over months to send significant amount of money. Everyone I represented thus far has lost over $1 million to these scams, and most of them come from IRAs or other qualified pensions. And having the money stolen from them is one sort of victimization, but at the end of the year, they then receive a tax bill from the state and federal government. So if you had $1 million stolen from you, you then get a tax bill for another $400,000 of income, even though you never got that income. This bill seeks to remedy that, at least in Maryland. Federal legislation was introduced a few years ago, but this seeks to change that in Maryland to give these poor victims, the elderly victims, a credit if they can prove, in fact, that they were scammed, that most of them can, with police reports and financial documents from banking entities. So that's what this bill seeks to do. I would also say, Senators, that I had one of my clients who wanted to be here today. She submitted written testimony. Unfortunately, she didn't sign up correctly, but she'll be here Thursday on the House side, so no offense, Senator Bailey. We will get her here, but her testimony is here so that we can have a face to these many victims of this, and we urge a favorable support.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Evan, did you want to testify?
Me too, Madam Chair.
That's the best testimony we've heard all day. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I think we saved the best bill of the day for Senator Simonaire. Senate Bill 262.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to see you. For the record, Senator Brian Simonaire, Senate Bill 262. And out of respect for the committee, I always try to have more written testimony, so you'll probably see about 15 favorables. However, I didn't want my constituent not to show up. She had trouble with signing up, so I would ask that we could put late testimony for the record. I also want to thank the governor's support through MSDE for their support letter. As you're well aware of current law, that we give teachers a small deduction on the Maryland income tax if they have unreimbursed expenses in the classroom. I think it was passed back in 2019 by one of your own members, former members of this committee. And all this bill does is put pre-K instead of K through 12. you can imagine going through Anne Arundel County. I go to this elementary school and I go into one classroom and there's a kindergarten teacher and she gets the pre-tax. You go next door, they're doing pre-K and they can't get the tax deduction. So it's a relatively modest fiscal note. And this is just a tweak to that. Now, I did notice there was one letter of opposition from Mako. Pardon me? Compared to the 7 million that we're.
Is it a deficit? 80,000?
Yes. And Mako's, I think, trying to make a point maybe this year. They didn't oppose the original legislation when it was like $7 million, but now that it's $2,000 per county, they're saying they would rather you give them a tax credit so they wouldn't have to pay that $2,000 per county, and then they would be favorable. But it's a matter of fairness. These teachers are in the same classroom. They're the same full-time teachers in our school system. It's a relatively very modest, like $20 per teacher, and for all that they give to us. So with that, I would ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you very much. Yes, young man.
Quick comment. He has a pretty good chance.
Thank you, sir.
All right.